Welcome back to the channel. If you've been anywhere near entertainment news this week, you've probably seen Kelly Ripa and Howie Mandel's names trending alongside words like backhanded compliment, ageism, and uncomfortable TV moment. What started as what appeared to be a lighthearted on-air exchange quickly became a talking point across social media platforms, entertainment blogs, and celebrity news circles. People are weighing in from all sides, some defending Kelly, some siding with Howie, and many others using this moment as a springboard to discuss something far bigger. The way Hollywood talks about aging, especially for men and women in the public eye. This is the kind of story that feels small on the surface, but opens up a massive conversation the moment you scratch beneath it. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. To really understand why this moment hit differently, you need to know a little about both of these television giants and the worlds they inhabit. Kelly Ripa has been a fixture in American living rooms for decades. She rose to fame playing Haley Vaughn on the long-running soap opera All My Children, but it was her transition to daytime talk television that truly cemented her as a household name. Since 2001, Kelly has co-hosted what is now known as Live with Kelly and Mark, a show that has seen multiple co-host changes over the years, from Regis Philbin to Michael Strahan to Ryan Seacrest, and now her husband Mark Consuelos. Kelly is known for her quick wit, her unfiltered humor, and her ability to make any conversation feel effortless and entertaining. She also happens to be someone who, at 53 years old, consistently draws attention for her appearance, often in ways that are meant to be complimentary, but that come loaded with a very specific kind of pressure. Howie Mandel, on the other hand, is a Canadian-born comedian, actor, and television personality who has built an extraordinarily varied career spanning stand-up comedy, children's television with the beloved series Bobby's World, the long-running medical drama St. Elsewhere, and more recently, his decades-long stint as a judge on America's Got Talent. Howie is also widely known for being extremely candid about his personal struggles, including his OCD and mysophobia, a fear of germs, which has shaped much of his public persona over the years. He's 68 years old and has never shied away from discussing the realities of getting older in an industry that often treats age as either a punchline or a problem. Both of these people are veterans of the entertainment industry. Both understand how media works, and both, in their own ways, have been subject to the relentless scrutiny that comes with spending your life in front of a camera. That context matters enormously when you look at what happened between them. So let's get into the heart of it. The moment in question occurred during one of those casual, seemingly off-the-cuff celebrity interactions that have a way of taking on a life of their own once they hit the internet. Kelly Ripa, in what appeared to be a genuinely enthusiastic and warm-spirited moment, made a comment directed at Howie Mandel that was clearly intended as a compliment about how well he's aged and how good he looks. On the surface, it was the kind of thing people say all the time in Hollywood circles. You look fantastic. You haven't aged a day. Time has been so good to you. These phrases are practically currency in the entertainment world. But Howie Mandel's reaction was not what Kelly or anyone watching might have expected. Rather than laughing it off or graciously accepting the praise, Howie visibly bristled. He pushed back on a compliment, making it clear that being told you look good for your age or that aging well is somehow remarkable doesn't actually feel like a compliment once you sit with it for a moment. His response was sharp, self-aware, and genuinely disarming in the way that only Howie Mandel can pull off, because he managed to make a serious point while also keeping the energy from going completely sideways. What Howie essentially articulated, whether directly or through the subtext of his reaction, was something many people have thought but rarely say out loud in polite company. Complimenting someone specifically through the lens of their age carries an implicit judgment. It says, "Given how old you are, it's surprising that you look this good." It reframes the compliment as an exception rather than a rule. And for someone like Howie, who has spent years navigating public perception, the discomfort was real and immediate. Kelly, to her credit, is someone with enough self-awareness to recognize when a moment has shifted, and by all accounts, The exchange didn't spiral into an argument or an ugly confrontation. But the clip circulated rapidly, and once the internet got hold of it, the conversation expanded well beyond the two personalities involved. People began sharing their own experiences of receiving similar compliments, the kind that come wrapped in surprise, that carry the invisible weight of lowered expectations, and that remind you, even in a moment of praise, that your age is always being factored into how the world sees you. It's also worth noting the specific dynamic at play here. Kelly Ripa herself has been on the receiving end of age-related commentary throughout her career, and she has spoken openly about the double standards women face in television when it comes to aging. So there's something particularly interesting about the fact that it was Kelly who inadvertently delivered this kind of comment to Howie, suggesting that even people who have experienced the sting of age-based judgment can sometimes fall into the same linguistic patterns without realizing it in the moment. The internet, as you can imagine, had a lot to say. Social media erupted almost immediately after the clip began making the rounds. On platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and TikTok, users were divided, but the conversation was overwhelmingly thoughtful rather than simply reactive. Many people shared personal anecdotes about receiving similar backhanded compliments and validated Howie's discomfort loudly and clearly. The phrase, "you look great for your age," started trending as people unpacked exactly why it doesn't feel as generous as it's meant to. Entertainment outlets picked up the story quickly, with many framing it as a teachable moment about the language we use around aging. Several commentators pointed out that this kind of phrasing is something women, in particular, have been calling out for years, and that it was striking to watch a man in the public eye respond to it with the same level of candor and pushback that women have long been encouraged to bring to these conversations. Fans of both Kelly and Howie were largely sympathetic to both sides. Most Kelly supporters were quick to note that she clearly meant no harm, and that the moment was not malicious in any way. Howie's fans, meanwhile, were proud of him for not simply brushing it aside and for using the moment to make a broader point. Perhaps most interesting was the reaction from people who admitted they've said similar things themselves and hadn't previously considered how it might land, which is exactly the kind of reflection that gives a moment like this genuine cultural weight. At its core, this story is about something much bigger than a single awkward moment between two television personalities. It's about the language of aging in an industry and a culture that has historically treated growing older as a flaw to be managed, a problem to be solved, or at best, a surprise to be marveled at. When we express shock that someone looks good at a certain age, we're revealing an assumption that people shouldn't look good past a certain point. And that assumption is worth examining. For Hollywood specifically, where careers are often brutally shaped by appearance, and where ageism is both well documented and deeply entrenched, this exchange resonates on a particularly sharp frequency. Howie Mandel is 68 years old and still working at an extraordinarily high level in a deeply competitive industry. The fact that he pushed back on being complimented through the filter of his age says something important. He doesn't want his relevance framed as an anomaly. He simply wants to be seen as good at what he does, full stop. And for Kelly Ripa, someone who has been remarkably vocal about the pressures women face on television as they age, this moment serves as a reminder that these patterns are so deeply embedded in our conversational culture that even the most aware and well-meaning people can reproduce them without thinking. That's not a criticism of Kelly. It's an observation about how deeply these habits run. Going forward, it will be interesting to see whether Kelly and Howie address the moment more directly in their respective platforms. Kelly's show, Live with Kelly and Mark, had a long tradition of addressing trending moments, and it wouldn't be surprising to see her bring it up on air, possibly with the humor and self-deprecation she's known for. Howie, who is never short of things to say, may well revisit the topic on his own platforms or in interviews, particularly given how strongly his fans responded to his reaction. More broadly, this moment feels like it could become part of a larger ongoing conversation in the entertainment industry about the language used around aging celebrities, a conversation that is genuinely gaining momentum as more voices, both male and female, speak out about the specific ways ageism shows up in everyday compliments, casting decisions, and media coverage. Don't be surprised if this clip resurfaces in think pieces, panel discussions, and even late-night segments in the weeks to come.